Lisa had always been the type of person who liked things exactly the same way every day. She would wake up at 7 in the morning, drink her coffee while watching the news, and leave for work at exactly 8:15. When she came home, she would put her keys on the small hook by the door, check her mail, and then make dinner while listening to her favorite radio station. But on this particular Tuesday evening in October, something felt completely different. The moment she opened her front door, the house felt strange, like someone had been moving around inside while she was away. She stood in the doorway for a moment, listening carefully. There was a soft humming sound coming from somewhere deep inside the house, almost like the sound of a computer running, but much softer and more musical. Lisa lived alone in a small 2-bedroom house on Maple Street. She had bought it 3 years ago after her divorce, and it had become her safe place. She knew every sound the house made, the way the refrigerator hummed, how the floorboards creaked in the hallway, and the weird noise the bathroom fan made when it needed cleaning. But this sound was completely new. She closed the door quietly behind her and looked around the living room. Everything seemed normal at first glance, but then she noticed small things that were wrong. Her favorite book, which she always kept on the coffee table, was now sitting perfectly straight on the windowsill. The cushions on her couch were arranged differently than how she had left them. Someone had definitely been in her house. Her heart started beating faster. Lisa had always been careful about locking her doors and windows. She lived in a safe neighborhood, but she still made sure everything was secure before leaving for work each morning. How could someone have gotten inside? And why would they just move things around instead of taking them? The humming sound was getting a little louder, and now she could see a strange light coming from under the door of her guest bedroom. It was a soft blue-green color that seemed to pulse gently, like a heartbeat made of light. Lisa had never seen anything like it before. She grabbed a wooden spoon from the kitchen counter. It was the only thing she could think of to use as protection. Her hands were shaking a little as she walked slowly down the hallway toward the guest bedroom. Each step made the old floorboards creak, and she winced every time, worried that whoever was in there would hear her coming. The light under the door was definitely getting brighter, and the humming sound was now clearly coming from inside the room. Lisa pressed her ear against the door and listened. She could hear what sounded like someone moving around, but very quietly and carefully. Then she heard something that made her blood run cold. Someone was talking, but in a language she had never heard before. The words were soft and musical, almost like singing, but definitely not any language from Earth. Lisa took a deep breath and tried to calm herself down. Maybe she was just imagining things. Maybe the stress from her job was making her hear things that weren't really there. But the light under the door was real, and so was the humming sound. She had to know what was going on in her own house. Very slowly, she turned the doorknob and pushed the door open just a crack. What she saw made her forget how to breathe for a moment. There was a woman sitting cross-legged on the floor in the middle of the room, surrounded by objects that looked like they were made of crystal or glass. But these weren't ordinary crystals. They were glowing with their own light, pulsing in different colors and creating the humming sound she had been hearing. The woman herself was unlike anyone Lisa had ever seen. She appeared to be about 30 years old, with long hair that seemed to change color in the light from the crystals. Her skin looked almost see-through, like it was made of the finest porcelain. And when she looked up, Lisa saw that her eyes were much larger than normal human eyes. They were the color of deep ocean water with tiny flecks of silver that seemed to move and sparkle. The woman was wearing clothing that looked like it was made from the same material as the crystals, flowing and changing color as she moved. She was holding one of the glowing objects in her hands, turning it slowly and speaking to it in that musical language Lisa had heard through the door. For what felt like hours, but was probably only a few seconds, both women stared at each other in complete silence. Lisa felt like she was in a dream, or maybe watching a movie. This couldn't be real. People who looked like this didn't exist. The glowing crystals definitely didn't exist. But here they were, right in her guest bedroom. Finally, the strange woman spoke. And Lisa was shocked to hear perfect English coming from her lips, though her voice had that same musical quality as the language she had been speaking before. "Please don't be afraid," the woman said, setting down the crystal object and holding up both hands to show she meant no harm. "I know this must be very confusing and scary for you. My name is Zara, and I really need your help." Lisa's mind was racing. She wanted to run, to call the police, to do anything except stand there staring at this impossible person in her house. But something about the woman's voice made her feel less frightened. There was kindness in those strange eyes and genuine concern. "I'm not going to hurt you," Zara continued, staying seated on the floor so she wouldn't seem threatening. "I know. You have no reason to trust me, but I promise I'm not dangerous. I've been staying in your house for a few days, and I was trying to fix my equipment so I could leave without bothering you. But it's taken longer than I expected, and I knew you would find me eventually." Lisa finally found her voice, though it came out as barely a whisper. What are you? How did you get in my house? What are those things?" She pointed at the glowing crystals with her wooden spoon, which now seemed completely ridiculous as a weapon. Zara looked at the crystals and then back at Lisa. "This is going to be very hard to believe, but I'm not from Earth. I'm from a planet very far away, and these crystals are pieces of technology from my world. My spaceship had an accident, and I'm stranded here until I can repair my communication equipment and call for help." Lisa felt like the room was spinning. This was impossible. People from other planets didn't exist, and they definitely didn't crash land in her quiet neighborhood and hide in her guest bedroom. But the evidence was right in front of her eyes. The woman, Zara, didn't look human, and those crystals were unlike anything Lisa had ever seen on Earth. "I know how crazy this sounds," Zara said gently. "But I can prove what I'm telling you is true. Would you like me to show you?" Lisa stood frozen in the doorway, still holding that wooden spoon like it could somehow protect her from what she was seeing. Her mind kept telling her this couldn't be real, but her eyes were showing her something that changed everything she thought she knew about the world. Zara slowly reached for one of the smaller crystal objects near her feet. As soon as her fingers touched it, the crystal began to glow brighter, and suddenly the air above it shimmered like heat waves on a hot summer day. Then, right there in Lisa's guest bedroom, a three-dimensional picture appeared floating in the air. It was the most beautiful thing Lisa had ever seen. A planet hung in space, but instead of being blue and green like Earth, this world had purple skies and oceans that sparkled like liquid diamonds. Floating cities made of crystal stretched up into the clouds, connected by bridges of light that seemed to dance through the air. Strange flying creatures that looked like they were made of pure energy soared between the crystal towers. "This is my home," Zara said softly, watching Lisa's face as she stared at the impossible image. "It's called Kepler 442b, though that's just what your scientists call it. We call it Lyros. It's about 1,200 light-years away from Earth." Lisa's legs suddenly felt weak, and she grabbed onto the doorframe to steady herself. "Light-years," she whispered. "You're talking about space, real space, with other planets and other people living on them." "Yes," Zara replied, gently touching the crystal again. The image changed to show the inside of one of those crystal cities. People walked through streets that seemed to be made of living light, and buildings grew and changed shape as Lisa watched. There are many worlds out there with people like me, and there are many worlds with people like you too. The wooden spoon fell from Lisa's hand and clattered on the floor. She barely noticed. Her brain was trying to process what she was seeing, but it felt like trying to hold water in her hands. Every time she thought she understood, the reality of it slipped away again. "How long have you been here?" Lisa asked, surprising herself by actually speaking instead of just staring. 3 days, Zara answered. I've been monitoring your daily routine through my equipment. You leave for work at 8:15 every morning and come home at 6:30 every evening. You usually spend your evenings reading or watching your television programs. I was trying to stay hidden until I could repair my communication device and contact my people for rescue. Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. You've been watching me? For 3 days? Zara's expression became apologetic. I'm sorry. I know that must feel very invasive, but I needed to understand human behavior before I revealed myself. We've been studying your species for a very long time, but we've never made direct contact before. I wasn't sure how you would react. Studying us? Lisa's voice was getting higher. What do you mean, studying us? How long? Why? Zara touched the crystal again, and the floating image changed to show what looked like a huge room filled with screens and instruments. Beings that looked similar to Zara were sitting at controls, watching images of Earth from space, from the sky, and even from ground level. For about 800 of your years, Zara explained. We've been observing Earth and many other worlds that have intelligent life. We watch how civilizations develop, how they solve problems, how they treat each other and their planets. It helps us understand the universe better. Lisa felt like she might faint. 800 years. While humans had been fighting wars and building cities and inventing cars and computers, beings from another world had been watching everything like some kind of cosmic television show. But why don't you just talk to us? Why hide? Lisa asked. The image in the air changed again, showing what looked like historical scenes from Earth. Lisa could see ancient civilizations, then more modern cities, then scenes of war and destruction that made her stomach turn. Because most civilizations aren't ready for contact when they first develop the ability to communicate beyond their own planet, Zara said sadly. When we've tried direct contact with other worlds too early, it usually ends badly. Sometimes, the people worship us like gods. Sometimes they try to attack us because they're afraid. Sometimes they want to use our technology to hurt their own people or other worlds. Lisa thought about how humans often reacted to things they didn't understand. She remembered movies about alien invasions, government cover-ups, and people panicking in the streets. Maybe Zara was right to be careful. So what happened to you? Lisa asked, slowly walking into the room and sitting down on the floor across from Zara. The crystal objects were even more beautiful up close, each one pulsing with its own rhythm and color. I was part of a small observation team, Zara explained. We were supposed to collect some samples from your forests and oceans, record some of your radio and television signals, and return home. But something went wrong with our ship's power system as we were leaving your atmosphere. She picked up a larger crystal that was cracked down the middle, its light flickering weakly. This is part of our navigation system. When it failed, we lost control of the ship. My teammates managed to get to the escape pods, but I stayed behind to try to save our research data. By the time I got to a pod, we were too close to the ground for it to work properly. Where did you crash? Lisa asked. In the forest preserve? About 3 miles from here. The ship's automatic systems destroyed it after I got out, so there's no evidence left. I managed to save some of our equipment, but most of it was damaged. Zara gestured to the crystals around her. I've been trying to fix our communication system so I can call for help, but it's much more difficult than I expected. Lisa looked around at all the glowing crystals. And you chose my house because you live alone. You keep regular habits, and your house is close enough to where I crashed that I could carry the equipment here. Zara smiled, and Lisa noticed that her teeth were slightly different from human teeth, more uniform and almost translucent. Also, I've been monitoring your television programs and radio stations to learn about human culture. You seem like a kind person. I hope that if you found me, you might be willing to help instead of turning me over to your government. Lisa felt a mixture of fear and curiosity battling in her chest. This was the most incredible thing that had ever happened to anyone in the history of the world, and it was happening to her in her boring little house on Maple Street. "What do you need me to do?" she heard herself asking, and immediately wondered. If she was making a huge mistake, Zara's strange eyes lit up with hope. "Just let me stay here until I can contact my people. They'll come for me, and then I'll be gone. You'll never have to see me again, and no one will ever know I was here." Lisa looked at the beautiful, impossible woman sitting in her guest bedroom, surrounded by technology that seemed like magic. She thought about her quiet, predictable life and how everything had just changed forever. "Okay," she said quietly. "You can stay." Over the next few days, Lisa's entire world turned upside down. She would go to work at her regular job, sit at her desk answering emails and attending meetings, and pretend that everything was normal. But all she could think about was Zara, sitting in her guest bedroom working on those glowing crystals, trying to find a way to contact her people across the vastness of space. When Lisa came home each evening, she would find Zara exactly where she had left her, surrounded by the beautiful, alien technology. But now, instead of being afraid, Lisa found herself looking forward to these conversations more than anything else in her life. "Tell me more about your world," Lisa said on the fourth night, sitting cross-legged on the floor across from Zara. She had brought 2 cups of tea, though she wasn't sure if Zara could drink human beverages. Zara smiled and accepted the tea gratefully. "Thank you. This is very kind." She took a small sip and her eyes widened with surprise. "This is wonderful. We have something similar on Lyros, but it tastes different. More sharp, I think you would say." "What's it like there? I mean, really. Like? Not just the pretty pictures, but what's it like to live there?" Lisa asked. Zara touched one of her crystals, and the familiar shimmer appeared in the air above them. This time, instead of showing the grand crystal cities, the image showed something that looked like a neighborhood. But unlike any neighborhood, on Earth the houses seemed to be alive. They glowed softly from within, and as Lisa watched, she could see the walls gently changing color and shape. "Our homes are not built the way yours are," Zara explained. "They are grown from living crystal that responds to our thoughts and emotions. When I am happy, my home glows brighter. When I am sad, it becomes softer and more comfortable. When I need to work, it creates the perfect space for thinking. When I want to rest, it knows exactly how to help me feel peaceful." Lisa stared at the image in amazement. The houses are alive? In a way, yes. They are partners to us. They learn about each person who lives in them and try to make life better for them. If I am feeling lonely, my home might create a beautiful garden inside for me to tend. If I am worried about something, it might play music that helps me think more clearly. The image changed to show the inside of what must have been Zara's home. It was breathtakingly beautiful, with walls that seemed to be made of flowing water, frozen in place, furniture that appeared to be carved from single pieces of colored light, and plants that Lisa was sure had never existed on Earth. Some of them seemed to be singing, their leaves creating soft melodies that harmonized with each other. "Do you live alone?" Lisa asked. "No, I live with my family unit. There are 7 of us who chose to bond together. We are not related by birth, but we are closer than what you would call brothers and sisters. We share our thoughts and feelings through our connection to the living crystal of our home." Lisa tried to imagine what it would be like to share her thoughts with other people all the time. The idea was both fascinating and terrifying. Doesn't that get overwhelming? Never having privacy? Zara considered this carefully. We can choose what to share and what to keep private, but most of the time, we want to share. Imagine never feeling truly alone, even when you are by yourself. Imagine having the combined wisdom and experience of people you love available to you whenever you need it. Imagine feeling the joy of everyone in your family when something wonderful happens to any one of you. The image above them showed a group of beings that looked similar to Zara, sitting together in a circle. They were all touching hands, and waves of soft light seemed to flow between them. Their faces showed expressions of pure contentment and connection. "What about when people disagree, or when someone is angry?" Lisa asked. "Those feelings are shared too, but in a different way. When someone in our family unit is upset or angry, the rest of us can feel it and understand why. This makes it very difficult to stay angry for long, because you can feel how your anger affects the people you love. It teaches us compassion very quickly." Lisa thought about all the fights she had with her ex-husband, all the misunderstandings that could have been avoided if they had truly understood how the other person felt. That sounds amazing, but also a little scary. "It takes many years to learn how to be part of a family unit," Zara agreed. "Children spend decades learning to control their thoughts and emotions before they are ready to bond with others. But once you experience that kind of connection, being alone feels very strange." She looked around Lisa's quiet house, and for the first time, Lisa saw sadness in her alien eyes. "I have never been alone for this long before. It is one of the hardest parts of being stranded here." Lisa felt a surge of sympathy for this strange, beautiful being who was so far from home. "What else do you miss?" The image above them changed again, this time showing what looked like a vast library, but instead of books, there were thousands of crystals organized on shelves that stretched up into the clouds. Beings like Zara moved between the shelves, touching crystals and absorbing information directly from them. "Knowledge sharing," Zara said. "On Lyros, all information is available to everyone. If I want to learn about the history of our world, or how to create new technology, or even what it feels like to experience life as a different species, I can access that knowledge directly through the Crystal Network. Your libraries are wonderful, but imagine being able to not just read about something, but actually experience it as if you had lived it yourself." "You can experience life as other species?" Lisa asked, her mind reeling. "Yes, we have been in contact with many different forms of life throughout the universe. Some are very similar to us, others are so different that it takes great skill to understand their experiences. There are beings made of pure energy, others that exist in multiple dimensions at once, some that live for millions of years, and others that live for only moments, but experience time differently than we do." The images kept changing, showing Lisa glimpses of creatures and worlds beyond her wildest imagination. There were cities built inside the hearts of stars, beings that looked like living music floating through space, and planets where the very ground was made of crystallized thoughts. "How many different kinds of life are there?" Lisa whispered. "More than we have ever been able to count," Zara replied. "Every time we think, we have cataloged all the ways that consciousness can exist. In the universe, we discover something new and wonderful. Life finds ways to exist in places and forms that we never thought possible." Lisa felt very small suddenly, thinking about her little life in her little house on her little planet. "Do you think humans will ever be able to see all of this?" Zara was quiet for a long moment, her silver-flecked eyes studying Lisa's face. "That depends on what your species chooses to do with the knowledge and power you are developing. Some civilizations learn to live in harmony with each other and with their planet, and they join the greater community of conscious beings. Others destroy themselves before they can reach that point." "Which do you think we'll do?" Lisa asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted to hear the answer. "I think," Zara said slowly, "that meeting you gives me hope for your species. You found a stranger in your home, someone completely different from yourself, and instead of reacting with fear or violence, you chose kindness and curiosity. If more humans could make that choice, your world would have a very bright future." "Indeed." Lisa felt a warmth spread through her chest at Zara's words. She looked around at the glowing crystals, at the impossible images floating in the air, at this amazing being who had crash-landed into her ordinary life and turned it into something extraordinary. "I'm glad you're here," Lisa said quietly. "Even though it's scary and confusing, I'm glad I know about all of this now." Zara smiled, and in that moment, Lisa realized that despite all the differences between them, they had become friends. By the end of the first week, Lisa had completely changed her daily routine. She would rush home from work, barely taking time to eat dinner before sitting with Zara in the guest bedroom, eager to learn more about the incredible universe that existed beyond Earth. Each conversation opened her mind to possibilities she had never imagined. "There's something I need to tell you about Earth," Zara said one evening, her expression more serious than usual. "Something that might be difficult for you to hear." Lisa felt her stomach tighten with worry. "What is it?" Zara touched her largest crystal, and the familiar shimmer appeared in the air. This time the image showed Earth from space, but it wasn't alone. Scattered around the planet were dozens of small objects that looked like metal flowers floating in the darkness. "Those are observation stations," Zara explained quietly. "They've been there for over 200 years, watching and recording everything that happens on your planet. We're not the only ones studying Earth, Lisa. There are 42 different civilizations that have been monitoring your world." Lisa stared at the image, trying to process what she was seeing. 42? You mean there are 42 different kinds of aliens watching us right now? Yes, though we prefer the term conscious beings rather than aliens. We're all part of what we call the Quiet Council, a group of civilizations that work together to study and sometimes help younger species like humanity. The image changed to show what looked like a massive meeting hall floating in space. Beings of all different shapes and sizes sat around a circular table that seemed to be made of pure starlight. Some looked similar to Zara. Others were completely unlike anything Lisa could have imagined. There were creatures that seemed to be made of flowing water, beings that looked like walking trees, and others that appeared to be living geometric patterns. "We meet regularly to discuss the species we're observing," Zara continued. "We share information about their development, their potential for growth, and whether they might be ready for contact." "Ready for contact?" Lisa repeated. "You mean you decide whether or not to talk to us?" Zara nodded sadly. "It's not a decision we make lightly. Throughout the universe, we've seen what happens when advanced civilizations make contact with younger ones too early. Sometimes the younger species becomes dependent on our technology and never develops their own abilities. Sometimes they try to use our knowledge to gain power over their own people. And sometimes—" She paused, looking uncomfortable. "Sometimes what?" Lisa pressed. "Sometimes they destroy themselves trying to understand or replicate technology they're not ready for." The image above them changed to show scenes that made Lisa's heart sink. She saw planets that had been turned into wastelands, civilizations that had collapsed into chaos, and worlds where the very air had become poisonous. These weren't scenes from movies or imagination. They were real places where real people had lived and died. "This is what happened to species that received advanced technology too soon," Zara explained. "We learned from these tragedies that contact must be very carefully timed." Lisa felt overwhelmed by the weight of this information. "So how do you decide when a species is ready?" "There are several signs we look for. The species must develop the ability to travel beyond their own planet. They must learn to work together instead of fighting constant wars. They must begin to take care of their planet instead of destroying it. And most importantly, they must show that they can handle differences between their own people with wisdom and compassion." Lisa thought about the state of the world, the wars, the environmental problems, the way people from different countries or religions sometimes treated each other. "We're not there yet, are we?" "You're closer than you think," Zara said gently. "Your species has made incredible progress in the last century. You've begun exploring space, you've created global communication networks, and many of your people are working hard to solve problems like poverty and climate change. But you still have significant challenges to overcome. The image changed again, showing scenes from Earth that Lisa recognized from news broadcasts. There were protests and conflicts, but also images of people from different countries working together, scientists collaborating across borders, and communities coming together to help each other during disasters. The Quiet Council has been debating about humanity for decades, Zara continued. Some members believe you're ready for limited contact. Others think you need more time. My mission here was supposed to help gather final information for that decision. Lisa felt a chill run through her. What kind of information? How individual humans react to the knowledge that they're not alone in the universe, whether you respond with fear, curiosity, aggression, or wisdom. Your reaction to meeting me will be part of the report I eventually send back to my people. The weight of responsibility suddenly pressed down on Lisa's shoulders. You mean I'm like a test case? What I do matters for all of humanity. Not just you, Zara said quickly. Over the past 50 years, a few of us have made contact with individual humans in situations like this. Accidents that forced us to reveal ourselves. We study how people react, how they handle the knowledge, whether they try to use it for personal gain or keep it secret to protect both species. Lisa's mind was spinning. How many people know about you? About all of this? Very few. Maybe 20 humans currently alive have had direct contact with beings from other worlds. Most keep the secret, understanding that revealing it before your species is ready could cause panic or be used by people with bad intentions. The image above them now showed a map of Earth with tiny points of light scattered across different continents. These are the locations where contact has been made, Zara explained. Each light represents a human who knows the truth about the universe. Lisa stared at the map, seeing lights in places like Alaska, rural Australia, the mountains of Tibet, and a few other remote locations. Why are they all in such isolated places? Because contact usually happens by accident, like what happened with me. Our ships sometimes malfunction or encounter unexpected problems when we're trying to avoid detection. We seek help from humans who live far from your major cities, people who are less likely to cause widespread panic if they share what they've learned. What happens to these people? The ones who know? Zara was quiet for a moment. Most of them live normal lives, but with a much broader understanding of their place in the universe. Some become advocates for peace and environmental protection, understanding that these things will help humanity move closer to being ready for formal contact. A few have become informal ambassadors, helping us understand human nature better. Lisa felt the magnitude of what was happening to her life settling over her like a heavy blanket. And now, I'm one of them. Yes, Zara said softly. Whether you wanted to be or not, you're now part of a very small group of humans who carry this knowledge. The question is, what will you do with it? Lisa looked around at the glowing crystals, at the impossible images floating in the air, at this beautiful being from another world who had crash-landed into her ordinary life and turned it extraordinary. She thought about all the people on Earth who had no idea they were being watched by dozens of advanced civilizations, who didn't know that their actions and choices were being evaluated to determine humanity's future. I don't know, Lisa admitted. This is so much bigger than anything I ever imagined. How do I even begin to process all of this? The same way I'm processing being stranded on an alien world, Zara replied with a gentle smile. One day at a time. One conversation at a time, one choice at a time. The image above them faded away, leaving just the soft glow of the crystals illuminating their faces in the quiet room. Outside, the world continued spinning, unaware that in a small house on Maple Street, two beings from different worlds were forming a friendship that might somehow help determine the future of both their species. Zara, Lisa said quietly. I'm scared, So am I, Zara replied. But I think that's normal when you're part of something this important. On the morning of the 15th day, Lisa woke up to find Zara standing by the bedroom window, staring up at the early dawn sky with an expression of mixed hope and sadness. The largest of her crystals was glowing brighter than Lisa had ever seen it, pulsing with a steady rhythm like a heartbeat. "They heard me," Zara said quietly, without turning around. "My people received my distress signal. A rescue ship is on its way." Lisa felt her heart sink, even though she had known this moment would come eventually. Over the past 2 weeks, Zara had become more than just an incredible secret she was keeping. She had become a friend. The best friend Lisa had ever had, if she was being honest with herself. "How long do we have?" Lisa asked, sitting up in bed and pulling her robe around her shoulders. "They'll arrive tonight, just after sunset. They'll use your moon as cover so your satellites won't detect them." Zara finally turned away from the window, and Lisa could see unshed tears shimmering in her large, silver-flecked eyes. "I have to be ready to leave immediately. The longer they stay in your solar system, the greater the chance that your governments will notice something unusual." Lisa nodded, trying to keep her own emotions under control. She had always known this day would come, but she hadn't expected it to hurt this much. "Will I ever see you again?" Zara walked over and sat on the edge of Lisa's bed, something she had never done before. The gesture felt intimate and final at the same time. "I don't know," she said honestly. "It depends on what the Quiet Council decides about humanity's readiness for contact. If they decide your species is ready for formal introduction to the galactic community, then yes, we might meet again someday. If they decide you need more time..." She didn't finish the sentence, but Lisa understood. If humanity wasn't deemed ready, it might be decades or centuries before beings like Zara would reveal themselves to Earth again. "What will you tell them? About me? About humans?" Lisa asked. Zara smiled, the first genuine smile Lisa had seen from her since she announced the rescue ship was coming. "I'll tell them that I met a human who chose kindness over fear, curiosity over hatred, and friendship over suspicion. I'll tell them that you opened your home and your heart to a complete stranger from another world, and that you asked questions not because you wanted to use the answers for personal gain, but because you genuinely wanted to understand." Lisa felt tears welling up in her own eyes. "That's not enough to change their minds about our whole species, though, is it?" "No," Zara admitted. "But it's one more piece of evidence that humanity has the potential for wisdom and compassion. My report will join dozens of others from contacts like ours, and together they paint a picture of what your species might become." They spent the day together, talking about things they had never discussed before. Zara told Lisa about her childhood on Leros, about the family unit she missed so desperately, and about her dreams of becoming an ambassador between species someday. Lisa shared stories about her own life, her divorce, her loneliness, her quiet job and quiet dreams that had seemed so small before but now felt precious and important. As the sun began to set, Zara started gathering her crystals and placing them in a container that seemed to be made of the same living material as everything else from her world. Each crystal dimmed as she packed it away until only the largest communication device remained, glowing on the floor between them. "There's something I want to give you," Zara said, reaching into the folds of her color-changing clothing and pulling out a small crystal about the size of a marble. It glowed with a soft, warm light that seemed to pulse in rhythm with Lisa's heartbeat. "What is it?" Lisa asked, holding out her hand. "It's a memory crystal," Zara explained, placing the warm stone in Lisa's palm. "It contains recordings of our conversations, images of my world, and information about the other civilizations in the Quiet Council. If humanity is ever deemed ready for contact, this crystal will activate and help your people understand what they're being invited to join." Lisa closed her fingers around the crystal, feeling its warmth spread through her hand and up her arm. "And if we're not ready?" then it will remain dormant, and you'll have a beautiful stone to remember me by." Zara's voice was soft and sad. "But Lisa, I want you to know that even if formal contact doesn't happen in your lifetime, your life has been changed by knowing the truth. You're now part of something much larger than yourself, and that knowledge comes with both a burden and a gift." "What kind of burden?" Lisa asked, though she thought she already knew the answer. "The burden of knowing that humanity's future depends partly on choices that individual humans make every day. The burden of seeing conflicts and hatred between your people and knowing that these things delay the day when your species will be welcomed into the galactic community." Lisa nodded, understanding completely. She had already felt this weight over the past few days, watching the news with new eyes and feeling frustrated by every story of violence or environmental destruction. "And the gift?" she asked. Zara smiled, again, reaching out to touch Lisa's free hand. "The gift of knowing that you are not alone in the universe. The gift of understanding that consciousness and intelligence take countless beautiful forms throughout creation. The gift of hope that someday your children or their children might walk among the stars and call beings from other worlds their friends." As darkness fell outside, the large crystal on the floor began to pulse faster and brighter. Zara stood up and looked toward the window, where Lisa could now see a faint shimmer in the sky, like heat waves, but made of starlight. "They're here," Zara whispered. Lisa stood up too, clutching the memory crystal tightly in her hand. She wanted to say something profound, something that would capture how much these 2 weeks had meant to her, but the words wouldn't come. Zara seemed to understand without words. She stepped forward and embraced Lisa, and for just a moment, Lisa felt something incredible, a flash of connection, of shared emotion and understanding that reminded her of Zara's descriptions of life on Lyros. In that instant, she felt Zara's homesickness, her gratitude, her hope for humanity's future, and her genuine affection for the human woman who had shown her kindness. "Thank you," Zara whispered, "for everything." Then she picked up her last crystal, and both she and the container full of alien technology began to glow with the same light Lisa could see outside the window. The light grew brighter and brighter until Lisa had to close her eyes, and when she opened them again, Zara was gone. Lisa stood alone in her guest bedroom, holding the memory crystal and staring out the window at the empty sky. The shimmer was already fading, and within moments, there was no sign that anything unusual had ever happened. For a long time, Lisa just stood there, processing the silence and the sudden return to normalcy. Then she walked through her house, seeing it with new eyes. Everything looked exactly the same as it had 3 weeks ago, but Lisa herself was completely different. She went to her kitchen and made a cup of tea, the same kind she had shared with Zara on so many evenings. As she sat at her table, sipping the tea and watching the stars through her window, Lisa began to understand what the rest of her life would be like. She would go back to work tomorrow, and her co-workers would ask how her weekend was, and she would smile and say it was quiet. She would watch the news and read about space exploration with new interest. She would find herself being kinder to strangers, more patient with difficult people, more hopeful about humanity's potential. And sometimes, on clear nights like this one, she would hold the memory crystal and look up at the stars, wondering about all the civilizations out there and hoping that someday, somehow, her species would prove worthy of joining them. The crystal in her hand pulsed gently, as if responding to her thoughts, and Lisa smiled through her tears. She wasn't alone anymore. She would never be alone again, and maybe, just maybe, that knowledge would help her find ways to make the world a little bit better, one small choice at a time. Outside her window, the stars seemed to shine a little brighter, as if welcoming her to the cosmic community she now knew existed beyond the Earth's atmosphere. Lisa raised her teacup in a small toast to the universe and whispered, "Thank you, Zara. Thank you for showing me how big and beautiful everything really is.